Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands and stared at the malfunctioning air recycler. Another day, another broken machine on Nexus 7 station. He had been working as a maintenance engineer here for 8 months, fixing life support systems while dozens of alien species walked past him every day. Most ignored him. Humans were still new to the galactic community, still learning the rules. The recycler hissed and sputtered. Marcus grabbed his wrench and squeezed into the tight maintenance shaft. The corridor outside was busy with afternoon traffic. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past, speaking languages his translator chip barely understood. He heard footsteps approaching, heavy ones. Then something long and scaled nearly knocked his toolbox across the floor. "Hey, watch the Marcus started," then stopped. The creature that turned to face him was impressive. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to green in the station's artificial light. Her body was humanoid, but clearly reptilian, with powerful muscles visible beneath her diplomatic robes. But what caught Marcus's attention was her tail. It was magnificent, thick at the base and tapering to a fine point, covered in scales that seemed to glow from within. Marcus grinned without thinking. "Nice tail," he said. The words came out casual, friendly, just a compliment. Like telling someone they had cool shoes. The corridor went silent. Every alien in the hallway stopped moving. A four-armed trader dropped his datapad. 2 insectoid diplomats froze mid-conversation. Even the station's automated cleaning drones seemed to pause. The tall alien's tail suddenly flared bright crimson. The color spread from the tip all the way to the base in less than a second. Her eyes, golden with vertical pupils, locked onto Marcus with an intensity that made his stomach drop. "What did you just say?" Her voice was deep, controlled, but Marcus heard something dangerous underneath. "I said nice tail." Marcus stood up slowly, suddenly aware that everyone was staring at him. "It's just ... You know, a compliment?" The alien took 3 steps toward him. Each footfall echoed in the silent corridor. She was close enough now that Marcus could see the intricate patterns in her scales, the way her nostrils flared as she breathed. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yeah, Marcus Chen. I work maintenance here." He tried to smile, but his face felt frozen. "I am Vexalia of the Kirathi Diplomatic Corps." She spoke each word carefully. "Do you understand what you have just done?" "Made a compliment?" Marcus offered weakly. A small alien in the crowd, something that looked like a floating jellyfish, made a sound like wind chimes. "Oh dear. Oh my. The human does not know." "Know what?" Marcus looked around. The crowd had grown. Aliens were pulling out recording devices. Some looked excited. Others looked horrified. Vexalia's tail was still crimson, but now it moved in slow, deliberate patterns behind her. "Among my people," she said. "Commenting on a warrior's tail is not casual. It is a declaration. A challenge or..." She paused, and her tail shifted to a deep purple. "An invitation to bond." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. "Bond, like..." "Marry, trial bond," Vexalia corrected. "For 7 days, you are my trial mate. We complete the 7 tests of compatibility. If we succeed, the bond dissolves with honor. If we fail, or if you refuse..." Her eyes narrowed. "There are consequences." "Didn't know?" Marcus held up his hands. "I'm sorry, I was just being friendly. Humans compliment each other all the time. It doesn't mean anything like that." A new voice interrupted. "But you are not speaking to a human." Marcus turned. His supervisor, Director Hammond, pushed through the crowd. The older man's face was pale. "Mr. Chen, what have you done?" "I said someone had a nice tail." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. How was I supposed to know that was marriage proposal? "It is not a proposal." Vexalia stepped closer. She was so tall that Marcus had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. "It is a binding. Among Kirathi, such words create obligation. Honor demands I accept or reject immediately. To delay is to show weakness." Director Hammond grabbed Marcus's arm. "Vexalia, Surely we can explain this as a cultural misunderstanding. The boy meant no offense. Offense. Vexalia's tail flicked sharply. There is no offense. He has initiated the ritual, intentionally or not. I accept. You accept? Marcus squeaked. For 7 days, Marcus Chen, you are mine. Vexalia placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. Her grip was firm but not painful. We will complete the trials. At the end, if we both survive and succeed, you will be free. The bond will dissolve honorably, and if I refuse, Marcus asked quietly. Director Hammond leaned close and whispered urgently, then you create a diplomatic incident. Kirathi have trade agreements with 17 systems. They're one of the most influential warrior cultures in this sector. If you insult their diplomat, humanity's position on this station becomes very difficult. Marcus looked at the crowd. Dozens of eyes, in all colors and configurations, watched him. He looked at Director Hammond's desperate expression. He looked at Vexalia, whose face showed no emotion, but whose tail had shifted to a neutral gray. What happens during these 7 days? He asked. You will live in my presence. We will complete 7 trials together. Combat, provision, strategy, resilience, creativity, endurance, truth. Vexalia counted them on her clawed fingers. Each test reveals compatibility. Each must be passed for honorable dissolution. And if I fail a test, then the bond becomes permanent, or you are marked as unworthy. Her golden eyes studied him. Neither outcome is ideal, I suspect. Marcus took a deep breath. He thought about his tiny quarters, his lonely meals, his simple life-fixing machines. He thought about causing an interstellar incident because he could not keep his mouth shut. He thought about this intimidating alien warrior woman who was watching him with the intensity of a predator. Okay, he said finally. 7 days. I can do 7 days. Vexalia's tail shifted to a lighter blue. Was that approval? Marcus could not tell. Gather your belongings, she commanded. You will move to my quarters tonight. The trials begin at dawn. She turned and walked away, her tail swishing behind her. Marcus heard the crowd erupt in chatter. Bets were being placed. Predictions made. Someone was already streaming this to the Galactic Network. Director Hammond patted his shoulder. Try not to die, Chen. You're the best engineer we have. Marcus watched Vexalia disappear around the corner. Her tail was the last thing he saw, glowing softly in the dim corridor light. Nice tail, he muttered to himself. Why did I say nice tail? At dawn, he would face his first trial. Tonight, he would share quarters with an alien warrior who could probably break him in half. All because of 2 simple words. Marcus returned to his broken air recycler and laughed. The sound was slightly hysterical. It was going to be a very long week. Part 2. Trial by combat and breakfast. Marcus woke to the smell of something burning. His eyes snapped open, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then memory returned with uncomfortable clarity. Vexalia's quarters. The bonding ritual. 7 days of trials. He sat up on the sleeping mat she had provided. His neck hurt. The mat was designed for Kirathi, not humans. And apparently Kirathi liked their beds as hard as stone. The burning smell came from the main room. Marcus pulled on his clothes and stepped through the doorway. He stopped and stared. His belongings were gone. Well, not gone. Reorganized. His few possessions had been arranged according to some pattern he did not understand. His tools were lined up by size. His clothes were folded in perfect squares. Even his datapad had been moved to what Vexalia apparently considered the correct position. She stood at the food processor, back to him. Her tail swayed gently as she worked. In the morning light from the viewport, her scales looked almost silver. You are awake, she said, without turning around. Good. The first trial begins in 1 hour. What's burning? Marcus asked carefully. Your earth coffee. Vexalia turned, holding a cup. The liquid inside was black and smoking slightly. I researched human morning rituals. This beverage appears important. Marcus took the cup. The coffee was strong enough to strip paint, but he drank it anyway. Thank you, he managed. Do not thank me. I am following protocol." But her tail had shifted to a pale green. Marcus wondered what that meant. They ate breakfast in silence. Vexalia consumed something that looked like raw meat and smelled worse. Marcus ate a protein bar and tried not to think about what was coming. An hour later, they stood in the station's combat dome. Marcus had been here once before to watch two aliens settle a trade dispute through ritual combat. He never imagined he would be standing in the center of the arena himself. The dome was packed. Word had spread fast. Humans, aliens, even some of the station's service robots had found viewing positions. Marcus saw Director Hammond in the front row, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. The crowd was placing bets. Marcus tried not to listen to the odds. Vexalia stood across from him. Vexalia stood off the powerful muscles in her arms and legs. Her tail was wrapped around her waist like a belt. She held no weapon. She did not need one. "The rules are simple," she announced, her voice carrying across the dome. "You must survive 3 minutes of combat against me. You may use any method except lethal force. You may not leave the arena. Begin when ready." Marcus looked down at himself. He wore his maintenance coveralls and work boots. He had no armor, no weapons. No training beyond basic self-defense classes that seemed very far away now. The crowd went quiet. Waiting, Marcus took a breath and said, "Ready." Vexalia moved like liquid lightning. One moment she was across the arena, the next she was in front of him, claws reaching for his chest. Marcus threw himself sideways, barely avoiding the strike. He rolled, came up running, and headed for the nearest wall. "You cannot run for 3 minutes," Vexalia called. She sounded almost amused. Marcus was not running. He was thinking. The combat dome was built on top of the station's lower maintenance level. He had installed half the systems in this room. He knew every panel, every access port, every quirk of the arena's construction. He reached the wall and slapped the emergency maintenance release. A panel popped open, revealing a narrow crawl space. Marcus squeezed inside. Behind him, he heard Vexalia make a sound that might have been surprise. Or laughter. The crawl space was dark and cramped. Marcus moved fast, his hands finding familiar pipes and conduits. He knew this space. He emerged from another panel on the opposite side of the arena, behind Vexalia. The crowd cheered. Vexalia turned, her tail unwrapping from her waist and lashing like a whip. Marcus ducked under it and ran for the center of the arena, where the gravity plating had a known fluctuation zone. It was scheduled for repair, but never urgent enough to fix. Vexalia pursued him. She was faster, stronger, more skilled. But Marcus knew the terrain. He reached the center and jumped. Just as Vexalia lunged for him, the gravity fluctuation kicked in. For a half second, they both experienced 0G. Vexalia, unprepared, flailed. Marcus, who had practiced in this exact spot, used the momentum to push himself toward the ceiling. He caught a support beam and pulled himself up. Below him, Vexalia landed gracefully as gravity returned. She looked up at him, and her tail flashed bright yellow. "Clever," she said. 1 minute down, Marcus called back. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. The next 2 minutes were chaos. Vexalia learned quickly. She stopped chasing and started predicting. Marcus used every trick he knew. He triggered the fire suppression system, filling part of the arena with foam. He opened access panels to create obstacles. He even managed to tangle her tail briefly in a cargo net. But she was always there, always close, always dangerous. Her claws came within inches of him a dozen times. Once she actually caught his sleeve and tore it clean off. The crowd roared. Marcus was exhausted. His lungs burned. His legs shook. He had 30 seconds left and nowhere to run. Vexalia cornered him against the main viewport. Space stretched beyond the transparent material, cold and infinite. She approached slowly, almost gently. "You have fought well," she said. 15 seconds remain. Will you surrender with honor?" Or Marcus did not let her finish. He dropped flat to the floor and swept his leg at her ankles. It was a move from his basic training, something humans used when strength was not enough. Vexalia, not expecting such a simple tactic, stumbled. She did not fall. Her tail caught her balance. But she stumbled. The timer buzzed. 3 minutes exactly. The crowd erupted. Aliens cheered, whistled, made sounds Marcus could not identify. Money changed hands. Director Hammond looked like he might faint from relief. Marcus lay on the floor, gasping for air. Vexalia stood over him. Her tail had turned a deep, rich purple. "You did not defeat me," she said. "Didn't have to," Marcus wheezed. "Just had to survive." She extended a clawed hand. Marcus hesitated, then took it. She pulled him to his feet with ease. For a moment, they stood close, and Marcus saw something in her golden eyes that might have been respect. "The first trial is passed," Vexalia announced to the crowd. "We proceed to the second provision." Back in her quarters, Marcus collapsed onto the terrible mat, while Vexalia explained the next trial. He had to prepare a bonding meal for them both. It had to show care, effort, and understanding. "There is a problem," Marcus said. "What problem?" "I have no idea what Kirathi eats. I mean, I saw you eat that meat thing this morning, but I don't know if that's normal or special or what." He sat up, wincing at his sore muscles. "I'm going to fail this one." Vexalia's tail swished thoughtfully. "What do you propose?" "Honesty." Marcus stood up. "I can't make you a Kirathi meal because I don't know how. But I can make you a human meal and explain what it means. Would that count?" Vexalia was quiet for a long moment. Then her tail shifted to pale blue again. "Proceed." Marcus spent the next 3 hours in the quarter's small food preparation area. He used the station's supplies to recreate dishes from Earth. Simple things. Rice, vegetables cooked, the way his grandmother had taught him. Synthetic chicken that almost tasted real. Bread that he managed to bake in the tiny oven. He set everything on the low table in the main room. Vexalia sat across from him, her large frame folded into a sitting position that looked uncomfortable. "On Earth," Marcus began, "sharing a meal is important. This dish is rice. My family grew rice for generations before we moved to the cities. This one is vegetables, cooked with garlic and ginger. My grandmother made this every Sunday. The bread is, well, humans have been making bread for thousands of years. It represents home." Pushed the plates toward her. "I don't know if you can eat any of this. I don't know if you'll like it. But I made it with care, and I'm sharing my culture with you honestly. That's the best provision I can offer." Vexalia studied the food. Her tail moved in slow, complex patterns. Finally, she picked up a piece of bread and took a small bite. She chewed thoughtfully. "It is sweet," she said, "and soft. Kirathi food is neither of these things. Is that bad?" "It is different." She took another bite. "You have passed the second trial, Marcus Chen? Really? The trial tests whether you can provide sustenance and care. You cannot give me what I am accustomed to, but you offered what you have with honesty and effort. This is acceptable." She continued eating, trying each dish with careful attention. Marcus watched her tail shift through different colors. Blue, green, a hint of gold. 5 trials remain," Vexalia said finally. "Tomorrow, my political rivals arrive on the station." "Political rivals?" "Yes, they oppose my work. They will watch the remaining trials, hoping I fail." Her tail darkened to gray. "They will try to sabotage you, to prove that I am foolish for accepting this bond, even temporarily." Marcus felt his stomach sink. What kind of sabotage? The dangerous kind. Vexalia met his eyes. "Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus thought about running. He thought about asking Director Hammond to transfer him to another station. He thought about how easy his life had been. It's just 2 days ago. Then he thought about the respect in Vexalia's eyes when he survived the combat trial. The way her tail had turned purple when he offered her food made with care. "I'm prepared," he said. Vexalia's tail flashed bright gold. "Just for a moment, then rest tonight, Marcus Chin. Tomorrow, things become difficult." Part 3. Strategic hearts and diplomatic minds. The rivals arrived on the morning of day 3. Marcus watched from Vexalia's quarters as their ship docked with the station. It was large and intimidating, covered in markings that even his translator could not fully interpret. "That is the vessel of Commander Thraxic," Vexalia said quietly. She stood at the viewport, her tail wrapped tightly around her waist. "He leads the traditionalist faction. He believes I am too soft, too willing to compromise with other species. And now he's here to watch me fail," Marcus said. "Yes," she turned to face him. "Today combines the third and fourth trials: strategic thinking and emotional resilience. There will be a formal dinner tonight. You will be tested on both. Tested how? They will try to break you. With customs you do not know. With food that may harm you. With words designed to make you look foolish or weak." Her golden eyes were serious. "You must think strategically and maintain your composure. If you fail either test, I lose political standing. Thraxic will use your failure to argue against my policies." Marcus felt pressure building in his chest. "Why does my success or failure matter to your politics?" "Because I argue that cooperation between species makes us stronger. Thraxic argues that other species are inferior, unworthy of equal treatment. If a human cannot pass these trials, he claims it proves his point. That's not fair. These trials are designed for Kirathi, not humans. Life is rarely fair." His tail unwrapped and touched his shoulder gently. The gesture surprised him. "But you have proven resourceful. Use that tonight." The dinner was held in the station's formal diplomatic hall. Marcus had never been inside before. The room was enormous, with tables arranged in a circle around a central platform. The ceiling displayed a projection of stars, making it feel like they dined in open space. 20 Kirathi sat at the tables. All were large, scaled, and intimidating. Marcus was the only human present. He felt like a mouse at a gathering of dragons. Thraxic sat directly across from them. He was older than Vexalia, his scales darker and scarred from many battles. His tail was massive, nearly twice the thickness of Vexalia says. When he looked at Marcus, his expression showed clear contempt. "So this is the human," Thraxic said in perfect standard. "The one who accidentally initiated a bonding ritual and now fumbles through trials he does not understand." "Commander Thraxic," Vexalia said formally, "may I present Marcus Chen, my trial bondmate? He has passed 2 trials already." "The easy ones," another Kirathi said. She was smaller, but moved with the dangerous grace of a fighter. "Combat against someone who knew you would not actually hurt him. Provision where you served him food he made himself." These proved nothing. Servers brought the first course. Marcus looked at his plate and felt his stomach turn. The food was moving. Small, worm-like creatures writhed in a blue sauce that smelled like ammonia. "Ah," Thraxic said with false pleasure. "Kavash worms. A delicacy among our people. You must eat them live. To kill them first is considered insulting." Marcus looked at Vexalia. Her face was neutral, but her tail had turned dark gray. She could not help him. This was his test. He thought about refusing. Then he thought about what Thraxic would say. That humans were weak. That cooperation was impossible. That Vexalia was foolish. Marcus picked up the eating utensil, speared one of the worms, and put it in his mouth. It tasted like salt and copper. It squirmed on his tongue. He chewed twice and swallowed, forcing himself not to gag. "Interesting," he said calmly. "On Earth, we also eat live food sometimes. Oysters. They're considered a delicacy too." Thraxic's tail twitched. He had expected Marcus to fail immediately. The dinner continued. Each course brought new challenges. Foods that burned his mouth. Utensils that cut his fingers if held wrong. Customs that made no sense. Throughout it all, Thraxic and his allies peppered Marcus with questions designed to trap him. "Tell me, human, why should we respect your species? You have been in space for less than a century. You still war among yourselves. You polluted your own world nearly to death." Marcus took a breath. He thought about getting angry, about defending humanity with passion and pride. Then he realized that was what they wanted. They wanted him emotional and defensive. Instead, he treated it like a technical problem. Data and observation. You're right, he said. Humanity made terrible mistakes. We did pollute Earth. We did spend centuries fighting each other. But we also learned. We survived ice ages with nothing but fire and stone tools. We survived plagues that killed millions. We survived nuclear weapons and climate collapse and our own worst instincts. He met Thraxic's eyes steadily. We reached the stars in a fraction of the time it took most species because we had to. We learned cooperation because the alternative was extinction. Maybe that makes us young and inexperienced. Or maybe it makes us survivors who understand the value of working together. The table went quiet. Vexalia's tail had turned a bright, approving blue. Thraxic leaned back. Pretty words. Let us see if you can back them with action, he gestured, and a servant brought a small box. Inside is a puzzle lock. It is used to train young Kirathi in strategic thinking. If you can open it within 10 minutes, you pass this portion of the trial. The box was metal, covered in alien symbols and moving parts. Marcus had never seen anything like it. He had no idea where to start. He picked it up and examined it carefully. The symbols meant nothing to him. But the mechanical parts, those he understood, gears and levers and pressure points. It was a machine, and Marcus fixed machines for a living. He ignored the symbols entirely. Instead, he listened. He pressed different parts and heard how the mechanisms inside responded. Click, whir, a soft grinding sound that meant the gears were not quite aligned. The Kirathi watched in silence. Marcus lost himself in the puzzle, treating it like any other repair job. Find the problem. Understand the system. Make the parts work together. 7 minutes later, the box opened. Inside was a small crystal that glowed with inner light. Marcus held it up, and the Kirathi made sounds of approval. Even Thraxic looked grudgingly impressed. You did not read the instructions, Thraxic observed. I couldn't. I don't know your written language. Marcus set the crystal on the table. But I understand machines. I listened to how the parts moved and worked from there. Brute force, trial and error, one of Thraxic's allies said dismissively.
Oh, yes.
No, Vexalia said firmly. Systematic analysis. He observed, theorized, and tested. That is strategic thinking. The dinner continued for 2 more hours. By the end, Marcus was exhausted. His stomach hurt from the strange food. His mind hurt from the constant verbal sparring. But he had survived. As the gathering broke up, Thraxic approached them. You have done better than expected, human. But we both know you are out of your depth. Vexalia would be better served by a proper Kirathi mate. Perhaps, Marcus said tiredly, but she's stuck with me for 4 more days, so I guess we'll find out. Back in the quarters, Marcus collapsed on the sleeping mat. Every muscle ached. His head pounded. He felt like he had run a marathon while juggling knives. Vexalia sat beside him. For the first time, she looked tired too. Her scales seemed dimmer, her movements slower. You did well tonight, she said quietly. Worms and solved a puzzle box. Not exactly heroic. You faced contempt and pressure with grace. You used your own strengths instead of trying to be something you are not. That is more difficult than it sounds. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the viewport, stars moved slowly past as the station rotated. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. Yes. Why do you do this? The politics, I mean. The fighting with Thraxic and people like him? You're clearly exhausted. Vexalia's tail moved in slow, weary patterns. Because I have seen what isolation does to species. How fear and pride lead to conflict. The Kirathi are strong, but strength alone does not ensure survival. We need allies. Friends. Partners who see us as equals, not threats. And Thraxic sees that as weakness. Yes, she looked at him, and in her golden eyes, Marcus saw genuine weariness. Sometimes I wonder if he is right. If I am chasing an impossible dream. Marcus surprised himself by reaching out and touching her scaled hand. It was warm and rough beneath his fingers. I came to this station 8 months ago to run away, he said. From a failed relationship. From feeling like I wasn't good enough? I thought if I just kept my head down and fixed machines, I'd be fine. Alone but fine. And now? Now I'm bound to an alien warrior diplomat, eating live worms and solving puzzle boxes. And you know what? This is the most alive I've felt in years. Vexalia's tail slowly wrapped around his arm. It was the first time she had done so voluntarily. The gesture was gentle, almost protective. For days remain, she said softly. Yeah. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. For more days, they sat together in the quiet, her tail around his arm, watching the stars drift past. Neither mentioned that in 4 days. The bond would dissolve, and they would return to their separate lives. Neither mentioned that neither of them wanted that anymore. Outside, the station hummed with life. Thraxic plotted his next move. The galaxy turned, and two beings from different worlds sat together in comfortable silence. Both realizing they were in far more danger than any trial could present, the danger of actually caring. Part 4. The Art of Endurance Day 5 began with art. Marcus stood in the station's cultural exhibition hall, staring at the massive blank wall before him. Around him, a crowd had gathered. Kirathi, humans, and dozens of other species filled the space, all waiting to see how a human would complete the 5th trial. Creative expression. Among Kirathi, this meant tail painting, using their strong, flexible tails. They created elaborate murals that told stories of their lives, their victories, their bonds. The paintings were considered windows into the soul. Marcus had a problem. He had no tail. You will fail this one, Thraxic said from his position at the front of the crowd. The old warrior looked pleased. Tail painting requires years of practice and a tail. You have neither. Vexalia stood beside Marcus. Her tail was wrapped tightly around her waist. She had said nothing all morning, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. This trial had no workaround, no clever solution. It required something Marcus simply did not have. I need an hour, Marcus said suddenly. The trial begins now, Thraxic countered. The rules say the trial must be completed by sunset. It's morning. I have time, Marcus looked at Vexalia. 1 hour, please? Her tail flickered through several colors. Finally, she nodded. 1 hour. But no more. Marcus ran. He sprinted through the station's corridors to the maintenance bay where he worked. His supervisor looked up in surprise as Marcus burst through the door. Chen. What are you, no time? Marcus grabbed his toolkit and started pulling parts from the storage lockers. Magnetic field generators. Flexible control cables. Sensor arrays. A haptic feedback harness from a decommissioned repair suit. What are you building? Director Hammond asked, alarmed. The tail, Marcus said. He was already assembling pieces, his hands moving with the speed and certainty of someone who had fixed 1,000 machines. Well, not a real tail. A mechanical extension. If I can rig the magnetic brushes to respond to my body movements, use the haptic sensors to give me feedback, and calibrate the whole system to the paint's electromagnetic signature. He worked faster than he ever had before. Welding, wiring, programming on the fly. The clock ticked down. 30 minutes. 2010. With 5 minutes to spare, Marcus strapped the contraption onto his back. It looked insane. A metal harness supporting 3 long, flexible arms, each ending in a magnetic paintbrush. The arms connected to a sensor web that wrapped around his torso and legs. Reading his movements and translating them into motion, he ran back to the exhibition hall. The crowd murmured when they saw him. Some looked confused. Others looked impressed. Thraxic just looked angry. That is not a tail, the old warrior said. No, Marcus agreed. It's better. It's 3 tails. He approached the wall. The magnetic brushes hummed to life. Marcus took a breath and began to move. It was nothing like painting with his hands. Each shift of his body, each twist of his torso, sent signals to the mechanical arms. They moved in response, sweeping paint across the wall in broad strokes. It took him several minutes to get the feel for it, to learn how to translate his intentions into movement. But once he understood the system, something magical happened. Marcus stopped thinking about the mechanics and started thinking about the story he wanted to tell. He painted their week together. Not as a burden or a trial, but as a meeting of two different worlds. On one side, he painted Earth in blues and greens. Humans reaching up toward the stars with determination and hope. On the other side, he painted the Kirathi homeworld in reds and golds. Warriors standing strong and proud, and in the center where the two worlds met, he painted himself and Vexalia. Two small figures from different places. Finding unexpected harmony in the space between, the crowd fell silent as they watched. Even Thraxic said nothing, though his tail lashed back and forth with agitation. Marcus worked for 2 hours. His arms ached. His back screamed from the weight of the harness. But he kept going, pouring everything into the mural. All the fear, the confusion, the growing feelings he did not know how to name. When he finally stepped back, the wall was covered with a story. It was not as technically perfect as a Kirathi tail painting would be. The lines were sometimes shaky. The colors bled in places. But it was honest. It was real. It was him. The crowd erupted in applause. Not just the humans, but the aliens too. Even some of the Kirathi who had sided with Thraxic looked moved. Vexalia's tail had turned a bright, brilliant gold that Marcus had never seen before. "The 5th trial is past," she announced. Her voice was thick with emotion she did not bother to hide. Thraxic stood abruptly and left without a word. His allies followed, their tails dark with displeasure. That evening, as Marcus soaked his sore muscles in Vexalia's quarters, she approached him with something like shyness. "You're painting," she said quietly. It was beautiful. It was messy. It was honest. She sat beside him. "Among my people, tail paintings are windows to the soul. You showed me your soul today, Marcus Chen. It is braver than you believe." Marcus did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing, and they sat in comfortable silence until it was time to sleep. Day 6 brought the physical endurance trial. Marcus had been dreading this one. After the combat trial, he knew how outmatched he was physically. How was he supposed to demonstrate endurance against a species of warriors? The test was a zero-gravity obstacle course through the station's maintenance tubes. Participants had to navigate a complex 3-dimensional maze, collecting markers along the way. The course was timed. The record was held by a Kirathi warrior who had completed it in 12 minutes. Marcus knew the course. He had helped design it, actually, during the station's construction. The tubes doubled as emergency routes and maintenance access. He knew every twist and turn, but there was a problem he had not anticipated. When they reached the starting point and gravity shut off, Vexalia froze. Her scales went pale. Her tail wrapped around the nearest handhold with crushing force. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. "Vexalia." Marcus floated closer, concerned. The crowd watching from the observation windows murmured in confusion. "I cannot," she whispered. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated with fear. "Kirathi, we do not do well in zero gravity. Our sense of direction, our balance, it all depends on knowing which way is down." Marcus understood immediately. Species evolved in gravity. Take that away, and instincts became enemies. Vexalia, so strong and capable in every other situation, was completely out of her element here. "We can forfeit," he said quietly. "Say you're ill. We'll do the trial another day." "No," her voice was firm despite her fear. "That would show weakness. Thraxic would use it against me. We must complete it." "Okay." Marcus positioned himself in front of her. "Then we complete it together. Close your eyes, what? Trust me. Close your eyes. If you can't see, your brain won't fight with what it thinks should be happening." Vexalia hesitated, then did as he asked. Marcus took her clawed hand in his. "Feel my movement," he said softly. "I'll guide you. When I push off, you push off. When I turn, you turn. Don't think about up or down. Just follow my lead." "I am a warrior," she said, voice shaking. I should not need. Everyone needs help sometimes. Even warriors. Especially warriors. He squeezed her hand. Ready? They started moving. At first, Vex'ahlia was rigid with terror. But slowly, as Marcus guided her through the maze, she began to relax. He narrated as they went, describing the path, warning her about obstacles, teaching her the rhythm of zero-G movement. It's like dancing, he said as they spiraled around a support beam. There's a flow to it. Action and reaction. Push and glide. Feel how the momentum carries you. I feel it, Vex'ahlia said, and her voice held wonder now, not fear. They moved through the maze together. Marcus collected the markers with one hand, never letting go of Vex'ahlia with the other. He showed her the beauty in the floating dance, the freedom of movement in 3 dimensions. He pointed out how the tubes connected, how the whole station was like a puzzle box they could navigate together. 20 minutes later, they reached the finish point. They had not broken any records. They had not even come close, but they had completed the course together. When gravity returned, Vex'ahlia stumbled and caught herself. She opened her eyes and looked at Marcus with an expression he could not read. You could have gone faster alone, she said. Probably. But that wouldn't have been as fun. Her tail unwrapped from the handhold and gently touched his cheek. The gesture was so tender that Marcus felt his breath catch. Thank you, she said. That night, as they prepared for sleep, Vex'ahlia's communication device chirped. She read the message, and her tail went completely gray. What is it? Marcus asked. My homeworld's council? The political situation has escalated. 3 systems are on the brink of war. They are ordering me to return immediately to help negotiate. How immediately? Tomorrow morning? If I stay to complete the 7th trial, I abandon my duty. If I leave, she looked at him with grief in her golden eyes. If I leave, the bond is considered a rejection. You will be marked as unworthy in Kirathi records. Any future human-Kirathi relations will be affected by my failure to complete the ritual properly. Marcus felt something break in his chest. Of course this was happening. They had 1 day left. 1 trial. And the universe was taking it away. Go, he said. His voice came out steadier than he expected. Marcus, your people need you. Preventing a war is more important than my reputation. Go. I'll handle whatever consequences come. Vex'ahlia's tail turned the darkest gray Marcus had ever seen. You do not understand. The mark of unworthiness is permanent. It is public. Every Kirathi in the galaxy will know you were rejected. It will affect not just you, but how my people see all humans. Then we'll deal with that. Marcus tried to smile. Maybe it'll give us something to talk about at the next diplomatic dinner. She moved close to him. Her hand touched his face, claws gentle against his skin. In another universe, I think we would have finished these 7 days differently. Yeah, Marcus whispered. Me too. They stood together in the quarters, not touching beyond her hand on his face, both knowing that tomorrow everything would change, and neither knowing how to stop it. Part 5. The truth that binds Marcus did not sleep that night. He lay on the mat in Vex'ahlia's quarters, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe in the next room. In a few hours, she would board her ship and leave. He would be marked as unworthy. The 7 days would end incomplete. He should have felt angry or cheated. Instead, he just felt sad, and that scared him more than anything else. At dawn, he found Vex'ahlia in the main room, packing her belongings. Her movements were mechanical, efficient. Her tail was wrapped so tightly around her waist that it looked painful. When do you leave? He asked. 1 hour. The ship is being prepared now. She did not look at him. I have sent messages to the council explaining the situation. They are ... understanding. Your dishonor will be noted as unavoidable circumstance. That's something, I guess. It is not enough. Now she did look at him, and her golden eyes were filled with pain. You deserve to complete the trials. You earned it. Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock at the door. Vex'ahlia opened it to reveal a young Kirathi, barely more than a juvenile. Marcus recognized her as one of Thraxic's former supporters who had been at the dinner trial. "Vexalia," the young one said urgently, "I must speak with you. Both of you." They let her in. The young Kirathi's tail was bright white with agitation. "My name is Keshra. I was sent by Commander Thraxic to spy on you. To report your failures," she spoke quickly, words tumbling over each other. "But I have seen these trials. I have seen how the human fought with cleverness, how he showed care in his food, how he maintained honor under pressure, how he created beauty without the tools his people were born with, how he guided you through fear without demanding gratitude." "Keshra, why are you telling us this?" Vexalia asked. "Because I have also seen how you are with him. How your tail shifts to colors I have never seen before. How you forget to maintain your warrior's mask when you look at him." The young Kirathi stepped closer. "The seventh trial is truth-telling." "What is the purpose of truth-telling, Vexalia?" Vexalia was very still. "To ensure bondmates hide nothing from each other. To test if the bond is built on honesty." "Yes. And what have you hidden from Marcus Chen?" Silence stretched in the room. Marcus looked between them, confused. Finally, Vexalia spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "What I feel. And complete the trial now," Keshra said. "Before you leave, complete it properly." "I cannot. There is no time. The ship can wait 1 hour more for the sake of honor. And if you fail to complete the ritual, Thraxic wins. He will say, you abandoned your bondmate for politics. That you cannot balance duty and personal honor. That your vision of cooperation between species is impossible because when it mattered, you chose duty over the bond." Vexalia's tail unwrapped from her waist. It lashed back and forth, colors shifting rapidly. Red, gray, purple, gold. The emotions she usually controlled so perfectly were written clearly in every movement. "She's right," Vexalia said finally. "We should complete the seventh trial." "Here," Marcus asked. "Now, there is a tradition. Seventh trials can be performed anywhere, witnessed by anyone. The location does not matter. Only the truth." Vexalia's tail had turned a deep, vulnerable blue. "Will you consent to complete it now, Marcus Chen?" Marcus thought about her leaving, about never knowing what she would have said, about spending the rest of his life wondering. "Yes," he said. Keshra sent out a quick message on her communication device. Within minutes, a crowd began to gather outside the quarters. Apparently, word traveled fast. Marcus saw Director Hammond arrive, looking confused. He saw other humans from the station, aliens of a dozen species, and he saw Thraxic and his allies, drawn by the commotion. Vexalia and Marcus stepped out into the corridor. The crowd made space, forming a circle around them. This was it. The final trial, truth-telling. Vexalia spoke in a formal tone that carried through the corridor. "The seventh trial tests whether bondmates can be honest with each other and with themselves. I will ask the ritual question, and Marcus Chen must answer with complete truth. Then he will ask me, and I must answer the same." She took a breath. Her tail moved in slow, deliberate patterns. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "Marcus Chen, what truth do you hold that you fear to speak?" The corridor went silent. Every eye was on Marcus. He felt his heart pounding. This was it. The moment where he could play it safe, give a diplomatic answer, to maintain the comfortable fiction that this had all been just a ritual, or he could be honest. He looked at Vexalia, at her golden eyes, at the way her scales caught the station's light, at the tale that had told him more about her feelings than words ever could. "I've fallen in love with you," he said. The words came out clear and sure. "This week has been the most alive I've felt in years. You're brilliant and strong and complicated and challenging. You make me want to be braver than I am. And I'm terrified because you're leaving. And you're a warrior diplomat who negotiates between star systems, and I'm just a guy who fixes air filters. But that's the truth. I love you, and I don't want these 7 days to end," a crowd murmured. Thraxic's tail lashed angrily. But Marcus kept his eyes on Vexalia. Her tail had turned a color he had never seen before. Bright silver, almost white, shimmering like starlight. "Now you must ask me the same question," she said softly. Marcus swallowed. "Vexalia, what truth do you hold that you fear to speak?" For a long moment she was silent. The warrior mask she wore so perfectly cracked and fell away. When she spoke, her voice shook. "I do not want to dissolve this bond. I want to make it real. I want to continue learning about your world and showing you mine. I want to hear your terrible jokes and watch you solve impossible problems with creativity I have never seen before. I want to see how your eyes light up when you figure something out." She stepped closer. Her hand touched his face. "But I am afraid. Afraid that a human cannot understand the weight of what I do. Afraid my world will not accept you. Afraid that 7 days is not enough time to build something that can survive the distance between us and the pressure of our responsibilities. Afraid that I am choosing my heart over my judgment and that it will end in pain for us both." Tears ran down her scaled cheeks. Marcus had not known Kirathi could cry. "That is my truth," she finished. "I love you, Marcus Chen, and I am terrified." Thraxic stepped forward, breaking the moment. "This is unacceptable. The bondmates have declared conflicting truths. They both wish to continue, yet duty calls them apart. The trial is a failure," Nokeshra said firmly. "The trial asks for truth, not for resolution. They have both spoken honestly. The trial is passed." Before Thraxic could argue, Director Hammond pushed through the crowd. With him was a Kirathi Marcus had never seen before, wearing official diplomatic robes. "Perhaps," Director Hammond said, "we can offer a resolution." The official Kirathi spoke. "I am Ambassador Krelix, senior diplomat for this sector. I have been in contact with Director Hammond regarding a proposal. We wish to create a new position, a cultural liaison between humanity and the Kirathi, based on the Kirathi homeworld. This person would help bridge our species, using their unique understanding of both cultures." Hammond looked at Marcus. "The position would include engineering duties, since we need someone to help maintain the new embassy systems. But primarily, it would involve cultural exchange, translation, and cooperation initiatives." "You are offering him a job on my homeworld?" Vexalia asked, hope rising in her voice. "If he accepts. The pay is good. The work is important. And it would allow him to continue his relationship with you if that is what you both choose." Hammond smiled slightly. "Personally, I think Chen is wasted just fixing air filters." Marcus looked at the faces around him. Hammond, supportive despite everything. Keshra, who had believed in them enough to challenge her former commander. Ambassador Krelix, offering a bridge between worlds, and Vexalia, whose tail was turning every color at once, whose face showed naked hope. "Accept. I'll take the position," the crowd erupted. Cheers from humans and aliens alike. Even some of Thraxic's supporters looked pleased. The old commander himself simply turned and walked away, his tail rigid with displeasure, but he did not argue. The ritual had been completed properly. Honor had been satisfied. Vexalia's arms wrapped around Marcus, pulling him close. Her tail wrapped around them both, a gesture of complete trust and affection. "Are you certain?" she whispered against his ear. "My world is not easy. My work is not easy. This will be difficult. I spent 8 months playing it safe," Marcus said. "Being alone and comfortable and bored, I think I'm ready for difficult." She pulled back enough to look at his face. "You called my tail nice." "I did, and I meant it. Still, the nicest tail I've ever seen." The sound was pure joy. "You are ridiculous." "Yeah, but you love me anyway."
"I do."
"The universe helped me. I do." They stood in the corridor, surrounded by witnesses from a dozen species, holding each other while the station hummed around them. In a few hours, they would board Vexalia's ship together. Marcus would leave behind the simple life he had built and step into something far more complicated. But as he held Vexalia close and felt her tail wrapped around him, he knew it was the right choice. Later, as they prepared to depart, Keshra approached Marcus one final time. "Yeah, I must warn you," she said seriously. "Vexalia's mother has 6 tails. Marcus felt his face go pale. 6. How is that even possible? She is a legendary warrior, an elder stateswoman. Very traditional. Very intimidating. Keshra's tail twitched with amusement. Good luck, Marcus Chen. You will need it. Marcus looked at Vexillia, who was grinning in a very unwarrior-like way. You could have mentioned your mother before I agreed to this, he said. Where would be the fun in that? She took his hand. Come, our ship is ready. We have a long journey ahead and much to discuss. Like how to survive meeting your six-tailed mother, among other things. They walked toward the docking bay together. Behind them, the crowd dispersed, already spreading the story of the human who accidentally started a bond ritual with a compliment and ended up changing his life as they reached the airlock. Marcus looked back at Nexus 7 one last time, the station where he had come to hide from life, the place where a casual joke had transformed into something real and terrifying and wonderful. Hey, Vexillia, he said as they stepped aboard the ship. Yes, your mother's tails. Are they nice? Vexillia laughed so hard she had to lean against the wall. Her tail turned bright gold and stayed that way for the entire journey home. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Marcus made a note, never compliment a Kirathi, elder's tales unless you're prepared for the consequences. But looking at Vexillia, her eyes bright with joy and love, he thought maybe consequences were not always bad. Sometimes. They were the best thing that ever happened to you. The ship's engines hummed to life. The airlock sealed. And Marcus Chen, former maintenance engineer and accidental diplomat, began the next chapter of his very unexpected life, one compliment at a time.